Hey, welcome back. Today, I want to talk to you about the risk that will make or break your retirement. Now, we're going to talk about four major risks. There's a whole lot of risk, but we're going to talk about the four major risks. And I think something that's really important for you to understand is that, maybe you're not even thinking about retirement. You're 20 years old, you're 30 years old, and you're just starting off on this trip to starting to accumulate money for your retirement. See, if you understand this stuff, if you understand how money really works and you understand what these risks are, then you can start mitigating this risk way younger in life and totally avoid them altogether. So tune in and pay attention here because it's going to help you whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or 80. What are the things that you should be looking at to make sure that you avoid? Now, a question for you. Are you prepared for a 20-year vacation? Yeah, 20-year vacation. You see, people don't understand that basically what happens when you go into retirement is you're going on vacation for the next 20, 30, 40 years, depending upon how long you live. So are you prepared? If you had to go on vacation today, what would that look like? Because, see, you don't get a paycheck anymore. So you've got to create these paychecks. And by the way, my name is James Johnson. I've been a wealth advisor for a very long time now, since 2003, something like that. And my expertise lies in retirement, estate planning, and saving businesses taxes. And as we go through these risks, I want you to think about which ones are major risks for you, and then I'm going to talk about some others outside of these four risks when we get towards the end. So of these four risks, one of the top ones is going to be inflation. Inflation, whether you like it or not, is going to happen. Now, there will be some times in life where there might be some deflation, but the reality of the matter is there's inflation, which means that it gets more and more expensive every single year to live. And this will impact your ability to live well during your retirement years. So if you're out there and you're living on $100,000 a year right now, and that's because the reality is you want to live the lifestyle you become accustomed to, adjusted for taxes and inflation, out beyond yours and your spouse's life expectancy. So you've got to factor in this. And when I'm running a report for inflation, I never use a number less than 3%. Now, I sit around and all day long, I'm working with individuals and showing them where they're at and what their retirement looks like, what their taxes are going to look like going forward, and whether their plan's working or not working. And we have to factor in inflation because if you're living on $100,000 right now, 20, 30 years from now, it may be $250,000 that you need. And the one thing that we can count on is there will be inflation. And it reduces your buying power of your dollar. So if you have a dollar today, okay, that same dollar back in 1920 would have bought $26 worth of stuff. That's a big difference. So these days, you need that $26 to buy the same thing you would have bought for a dollar back then. Kind of ridiculous, don't you think? So the second one is one of my favorite subjects. And if you've ever spent any time watching me or watching any of our YouTube channels here, by the way, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to like the video and share the video with other like-minded people that need this information. But let's talk real quickly about the highest income taxes, top marginal tax bracket since the inception of the temporary income tax and the establishment of the IRS in 1913. Would it surprise you to know that that was 94%? Yep, I didn't stutter, 94%. And if you lived here in the state of California with a top marginal tax bracket of 94%, you'd actually write a check for right around 6 to 8% to go to work. And I can remember back in the 70s, my father used to tell me, and by the way, I thought he was a complete idiot. He used to tell me, he says, I'm not going to work today because I'm working overtime and I'm going to pay it all out in taxes. I thought that was the most insane thing I ever heard, and he had no idea what he's talking about until I actually learned about taxes and where taxes have been and all these other things I'm going to teach you here. Because see, back then, he was paying 75%. He was paying 70 to the feds and 5 to the state. Now, would you go to work for 25% of what you worked for? Probably not. The average since the inception of the temporary income tax is about 57%, and currently we're sitting at 37%. Now, if that's all you knew, that would be one thing. But let's talk a little bit about how much taxes is being paid and who it's actually being paid by. So the top 25% of all taxpayers pay 87% of all the income taxes collected in the United States. The top 25% of taxpayers pay 87%. And would you be surprised to know that the AGI, the Joint Household Adjusted Gross Income before deductions for the top 25% of taxpayers is $87,044. So folks, here in Southern California and South Orange County, if you're at 87,000 joint household income, you're living just above the poverty level. And just about anywhere you go in the United States, two incomes, that would put you, right around that. And you're in the top 25% of all taxpayers. Now, if the top 25% of all taxpayers are paying 85% of all the income taxes paid in America, let me ask you a question. Where are the majority of the voters? Think about that for a second. Because, see, the majority of the voters that aren't paying the taxes are the ones that are in control of the vote. Now, why is that important? Well, that's important because we have a 37, almost a $38 trillion deficit or national debt. And on top of that, we have a almost $230 trillion in unfunded deficit for Social Security, Medicare, and prescription drugs. You put all that together, we're like over $260 trillion upside down, and our national budget is $5 trillion. Yet it's 5.2, but yet we spent 7.2, which is $1 trillion more than we brought in. Something's got to give, folks. Now, one of the greatest things that's ever happened to you is the current tax bill. But the reality is that going forward, it's a high likelihood that taxes will go up. So my question for you is, what do you believe? Do you believe that taxes will be lower, higher, or the same in the future? And be sure to put it down here in the chat box or down in the questions and put out your opinion. What do you think it's going to be? Because most people I talk to believe it's going to be higher. And this is something we have to factor in when it comes to planning for our retirement. Because you see, there's really only three ways to grow your money. You can grow your money in a tax-as-you-go environment, a tax-deferred environment, and a tax-free environment. Now, if I was to look at your portfolio right now, I would find that on an average that you have possibly 10 to 40% of your money in a tax-as-you-go environment, and probably somewhere between 60 and 80 or 90% of your money in a tax-deferred environment. And if you're lucky, you might have somewhere between 5 and 10% in a tax-free environment. But really, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in tax-as-you-go, tax-deferred, or tax-free? Oh, I know. They told you that you should put your money inside of a tax-deferred account because you're going to grow on money you would have otherwise paid in taxes. And in the end, you're going to have more money because you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. Well, is it true? See, you better hope it's not true. So the reality of the matter is most people that I sit down with, and when I do a full-blown analysis, a 100,000-foot view of their overall picture, they're often very surprised to find out that not only will they not be in a lower tax bracket, frequently they will be in a higher tax bracket of where they're at. And if they're married, it's almost 100% guaranteed that one of them will be in a higher tax bracket, because upon the death of one of the spouses, the only thing going away is 85% of the Social Security of the lowest earner. And now they have to file single. So now suddenly they're jumping tax brackets. And the problem with this is they didn't plan for this because they listened to the talking heads that said we should put our money in a tax-deferred account, not talking about what would actually happen when it came time to exit. Now, the third one is stock market risk. So the reality of the matter of stock market risk is it's not necessary, yet that's what most people do. Most people put their qualified money, their IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457, defined benefit plans, TSPs, all of these accounts in the market in some fashion or form. Oh, they'll say, I'm diversified. Well, my question for you is, if you're diversified, how? If you're just in securities, are you really diversified? Or are you diversified based on what your broker told you? Oh, but I'm getting a great rate of return. Well, what if I told you that rates of return are actually a lie? Average rates of return are a lie. Oh, that's not possible. They wouldn't lie to me. Okay, so follow my math here for just 1 second, all right? Let's say that I could guarantee you an average rate of return of 25%. I'm going to give you an average rate of return of 25% guaranteed going forward for the next 4 years. Would you want to do business with me? Now, most of you'd say, well, that's too good to be true. I don't want to do it. But let's take out the too good to be true. Let's say it was actually true and I could get you an average rate of return of 25%. Well, I'd bet there's not a single one of you out there that wouldn't take that deal, because that's a pretty good deal. So follow this now. We get $100,000. We're going to invest it, and we're going to get a 100% rate of return. Now we have $200,000. So we take the $200,000, we invest it the following year, and we get a minus 50%. So now we're back to $100,000. The third year we invest it, we make $100,000, and we're back to $200,000. We take it, we invest the $200,000, we lose 50%, we're back to $100,000. Now we're going to take our two positive 100s, our two negative 50s, we're going to add them and subtract them, and we're going to come up with a positive 100. We're going to divide by 4 years, and our average rate of return was 25%. So we started with $100,000, and we ended with $100,000, and yet we had an average rate of return of 25%. Now, folks, this is exactly how this is done in your prospectus. Did you ever wonder why it is that when you look at your portfolio, it doesn't seem to be growing based on those numbers? See, there's a simple rule. It's called the rule of 72. If you take 72 and you divide it by the interest rate you're making, that's exactly how long it takes to double your money. So if you had a 10% rate of return, that would be 7.2 years to double your money. Now, if you took the number of years it took to double your money and you divided it into 72, that would give you your average rate of return. So consider that thought. Now, what we know for sure is that the market's one of the greatest wealth building tools ever in the history of mankind. And it's very, very good for accumulating and building wealth. But here's the problem. You're over here building wealth in the accumulation stage of your life, and you're going to be moving over here to the distribution and preservation stage of your life. And I said it was the greatest wealth building tool, but I didn't say it was the greatest distribution tool. Because see, in distribution, the game is played different, because those losses in the market are very difficult to recover from. What you didn't know is it was always about income. You thought it was about rate of return, but it was always about income. You see, the market was going up and down over here, and it was no big deal because you had a paycheck. So you didn't have to touch this money, and it would go up and down. Now, when we get over here to our preservation and distribution stage of our life, the market's still going to be going up and down and up and down. And if we're participating in it, let's just say for sake of argument, we have $1 million. And we need to take out $60,000 a year because we need a paycheck. So the market makes 6%, life is good. 6%, life is good. 1 year, just one. The market loses 20%. We just went down 20% on our $1 million. So what are we at? Now, I know every one of you said $800,000. But see, the part you forgot was I still need to take the $60,000. So now I'm down to $740,000. And no matter what your rates of return, you're not going to recover. So you're not going to get back to that $1 million, and you're going to continue to have a slow down slide, and you may run out of money in your lifetime. So it is a definite risk. And what I can tell you for absolute positive sure is the market's going to go up and the market's going to go down. We're going to have bull markets and bear markets. So the question is not if the market's going to go up or go down. The question is, how many times is it going to do in your retirement? Now, the last risk that we're going to talk on and focus on is longevity. See, we're living longer, and that's just a fact of life. Now, it reminds me of, this couple that came out, some friends of mine, and they went out here to drive out to Death Valley, all right? And if you've ever driven to Death Valley, you come to this really long stretch of road you can see for miles and miles and miles and miles, and you see this sign. And the sign says, next gas, 100 miles. And this couple didn't really realize this, and they hadn't filled up on gas. And as they're going along, they looked at their gas gauge and they went, oh, I think we can make it. But then they started worrying about whether they could make it or not. And it's 120 degrees outside, and they're rolling down their windows and they're turning off their air conditioning, trying to make sure that they have enough gas to get to their final destination. They even coasting down hills, putting the car in neutral and trying to save every ounce of gas that they can. Is that how you want to go into retirement? Do you want to go into retirement thinking about, am I going to have enough to get me out to my life expectancy and beyond? Do you want to work on the golf course, or do you want to play on the golf course? Because see, the reality of the matter is it takes money to do that. And we have to factor in longevity. Never plan to your life expectancy. Always plan out to at least age 100. Because see, if you're a 65-year-old male today, your life expectancy is somewhere between 83 and 85. If you're female, it's somewhere between 85 and 87. And if you're a couple, there's a very high chance that one of you are going to make it out well over 90. Time magazine came out with an article said that the first child was born that will live to be between 135 and 150 years old. And you would say to me, well, that's impossible. No one can live that long. Well, read your Bible. Because see, in your Bible, it talks about living to hundreds of years old. So why isn't that possible? See, we've cracked the DNA code. We can now give you new body parts. We can give you a rebuild. You can come in for a total rebuild. Now, moving on, our parents and our grandparents taught us that what we should do is we could go out and get a solid job with a pension, and we should pay off our house as fast as possible so that when we get out to retirement, we have a pension, a gold watch, and life is going to be good. See, in those days are pretty much over. But the way that worked is we had a pyramid here. And at the bottom of this pyramid, we had a pension. Now, folks, I do seminars on a pretty regular basis, and never more than 5% of the room actually has a pension. And all of those people generally work for the government in some fashion or form. Teachers, city, state, federal, whatever the case may be. And if they're private, I always ask them, if I was to come to work at your company today, would I get the same pension? And the answer is almost always no. So when they were building that retirement before, they built the foundation of their retirement on their pension. And then on top of that, they had a supplement called Social Security. And then there was this tiny little bit at the top up here, which was the savings. It was the amount of money that they actually put away. Well, we've flipped that whole thing on its head now. So now a few people down here at the bottom of the triangle have a pension. There's Social Security in between, and now it's all about the money we managed to save. So as I was asking you before, what would it look like for you for a 20-year retirement? Have you managed to put away enough money? Have you figured out how to make sure that that money is going to be able to provide you with a lifestyle you become accustomed to, adjusted for taxes and inflation, out beyond yours and your spouse's life expectancy, and then pass it on in the most tax-favored way possible. Have you considered inflation, stock market, taxes, longevity? How about sequence of return, national debt, long-term care? There's a big one. Are you handling long-term care? About a 50% chance as a married couple, one of you are going to end up in a long-term care situation, which can totally ruin the other one. Withdrawal rate, government intervention, changing the law, and just plain old shit happens. There are a lot of risks that are going to take place throughout your retirement. Have you sat down and taken a 100,000-foot view of your picture to figure out, are these risks going to get you? And you're saying, well, I'm 20, I'm 30, it doesn't matter. That gives you all the advantage in the world because you have time, and you have time to start doing stuff about this. And remember, people don't plan to fail. They fail to plan. So please put some comments down here below, subscribe to our channel, go out and watch some of our other videos, like this video, and share it with friends and family. And remember, live like you're going to die tomorrow and plan like you're going to live forever, because you just might. Keep smiling, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.